My name is Enola Campbell. I'm the Vice President of Concessions, and welcome to the Supplemental Terminal A RFP pre-proposal meeting. Hopefully we will be able to answer a lot of your questions. Now that we have finished the real big RFP for Terminal A, boy, have we all learned a lot. And this is a journey. It is not one that we have a final as of yet, because things in construction do change. But we think we've got an awesome program already started, and we look forward to rounding out the rest of the terminal with some of the great opportunities that you guys are going to bring forward to help us do that. But before we get into all those other questions that I know you guys are going to ask, like, well, what's this open session here, and what's this over there, and what about shoe shines, and what about banks, blah, 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 blah. Let's talk about the overall process that we are going through and why, as an airport, we are looking to reinvent ourselves and through our TRIP program. So without further ado, I'm going to bring the guy that's out there making it all happen for us. Don't look around, it is you, Mr. Dwayne Brown.
Thank you, Zanola, and I'd like to also extend my welcome to DFW Airport. I've got a brief presentation, but it should give you some background, and I'll stay around for the rest of the afternoon in case you have questions on what we're doing more on the engineering technical side. The TRIP program began 4 years ago in 2007 as a planning effort where the DFW Airport started to envision, what do we want to do now that Terminal D is finished, now the Skylink is finished? How do we want to modernize and re-life our current legacy terminals? There's 4 legacy terminals at DFW Airport, A, B, C, and E. And each of the terminals functions a little differently. They have a different mix of air carriers, a different mix of customers within the terminals. So the master planning process occurred for a couple of years. It took that long to kind of get the hands around what is it that we want to accomplish here. And there's 2 different components. There is a central terminal component, which is those 4 legacy terminals, and that's right now at $1.9x billion. So almost $2 billion will be spent within the central terminal area upgrading the terminals. And then there's a non-terminal component, non-central CTA component, which is in the $600 million to $1 billion range, which is modernization of airfield and roadway infrastructure, utilities, other supporting infrastructure that's kind of behind the scenes. So what then occurred was a programming and schematic design phase. This is really where we take those planning concepts and say, okay, how do we translate that into the real engineering project? What are the different components that will be incorporated? And then we do some preliminary pricing and find out what can we afford to do. There are many, many ideas that came out in the planning phase that just ultimately were too expensive to move forward with. There were many ideas that were in the planning phase that the airport embraced and said, wow, this is a must-have. This is an essential to include in the program. So that process concluded last summer. And then at that time, the airport hired the program manager in, which is our team that we're part of, and the MWBE outreach began for all the different programs, both design, construction, and concessions, and many other programs. So the design teams then that were hired, there's 2, and the work is split evenly. One team is managing the design on terminals A and C. The other team is managing all the designs on Terminal B and E. Those 2 teams were put in place, and the work began last year. Jacobs and AECOM are the leaders of those 2 teams, and they have large, robust design groups. Most of those folks are off-site on the design teams. The actual leadership of the team is co-located on-site with the rest of our construction and management team. And we're marching very rapidly into construction. We have 2 main construction managers. They're paired up with our design teams. So The BARC team, led by Balfour Beatty, a very large U.S. contractor, is managing all the construction in Terminals A and C. So they're paired up with the Jacobs design team. And the MBJ3 team, led by Manhattan Construction, also another large U.S. contractor, is paired up with the AECOM team. So Balfour Beatty just finished building the Gaylord Hotel in Grapevine. That kind of gives you a little reference. So they have a lot of experience with these large venue types of facilities, and the Manhattan team that we have just rolled off the Cowboy Stadium. Okay, so again, we have two very experienced, robust contractors. They have a real good slate of subcontractors underneath them, and so we're really poised for a very successful and rapid deployment out in the field. And so that's really what's happened. We're looking at relifing these terminals, investing $2 billion to get another 30 years worth of life out of these facilities, to both modernize the components that are out there and then upgrade the system so that we have new, more energy efficient and modernized systems in place. There are some baggage handling issues that that we're handling in this program at E and B. And then on the land side, we want to enhance that customer's experience as they approach and enter into the terminals from the land side. So the systems that we're really focusing on for renewal, of course, are the HVAC and the electrical systems. Those are being gutted and replaced completely throughout all the terminals. The HVAC system that's originally in there is based on a type of design scheme that was really prevalent back in the 70s that most people do not choose to use anymore for these large facilities, so they're being replaced with the new modern technologies. The grease collection system, which is in operation, has to be greatly expanded because of the large expansion of concessionaires and the push of the concession spaces further away from that C line of columns has required a large expansion of that system. We're replacing all the elevators throughout the facility. We're bringing in a brand new fire protection and fire alarm system, voice evacuation, which is in keeping with the modern code standards for fire protection, and data systems, because we're putting in a new high capacity fiber backbone in each of the terminals. So all of these fire alarm, voice evac, all those systems tie into that data backbone. This again is so that we can have a large degree of relational stability within the terminal, both from a maintenance perspective and from an ongoing operations perspective. High reliability. I just did want to mention on the bottom, sustainability. That is a big issue for us as we're moving through design and construction. The incorporation of sustainable elements and materials within this facility. Not only are we trying to become more energy efficient, but we're really trying to become more environmentally sensitive with how we do construction out here. So the main terminal entries I mentioned earlier, at every terminal there are a number of enhanced entries that will be built. Not every entry point, but the entry points that lead you directly into the ticketing halls will be enhanced entries. It's kind of a main portal that says you're here at this range of gates. There'll be sign banners that cross across the road, covered walkways leading from the garages into those main entryways, high-speed flow-through elevators that bring customers up from the lower level or take customers down to the lower level, and a more visually enhanced experience on entering the building at those locations. Most terminals have 3. At Terminal B, we'll end up with 2, simply because we only have 2 ticketing halls at B right now. There are some curbside enhancements. We're changing the way the roadway systems work as far as who parks where. We're pushing the taxi, shared ride, limos to the lower level, because at these enhanced entries, we're going to have our ambassadors stationed at the lower level. So if you need ground transport, you'll be directed through signage to go through the elevators to the lower level. There'll be an ambassador there to help you get connected up with what you need, whether it's a bus to the rent-a-car facility or a taxi or a shared ride limo or one of the other types of connection transit mechanisms that we have. The garage refurbishments are an interesting issue, because in our current program, we are simply going to do some minor refurbishments to the garage. structural repairs as needed, expansion joints, minor cleaning. There's not a lot of work other than relighting to improve the lighting characteristics of the garage. But there are currently a number of issues on the table that we're working through where we may enhance what's in the program and actually do some garage expansions and kind of looking at how to change the way the garages work in relationship to the building to have more of an integrated approach like we do currently at Terminal D. That seems to work so well. We're looking at concepts now on how to push that out to the other legacy terminals. So at Terminals A, B, C, and E, the main components that you'll see as you walk into those terminals are the revised ticketing halls. Now these are pictures of the old ticketing halls, so this isn't the way it's going to look. I just wanted to point that out. The new ticketing halls, we're raising the ceilings, terrazzo flooring. It's the new modern walk-up concepts where there's not like a long ticketing bar, a lot more self-serve stations since that's become so prevalent throughout the aviation industry, throughout the world. And so a more open look, and part of the reason we're getting that open look is we're removing all the escalators that are currently at the terminals. So if you go out and look at that, those escalators protrude into that public walkway space and really hamper that walkway width distance both at the entries and at the ticketing halls. And it's a major pinch point. By removing the escalators, not only are we making the building shell more energy efficient by removing that draft potential, but and frankly, it's a giant maintenance issue to keep escalators operational. But then we're also going to open these halls up so they have a very different feel. And then we're revising the security checkpoints, and I've got a slide here that shows you a little bit more about that. So after ticketing, when you walk into the security checkpoint, part of the what we looked at in the planning phase is one of the major constraints of the current terminals is by having a ticketing, a security checkpoint that flows straight from the air side or the land side to the air side. We have a real constraint on length, and that security checkpoint typically projects out into the terminal concourse walkway areas. Those become very congested. What we've done is reallocated a lot of the space in these areas, turn the checkpoints 90 degrees so that we do have a lot more room to work with. And now we're going to have more modern, full-length security checkpoints that's more in line with what TSA has endorsed at other areas in other major CADX airports. So the experience moving through security should be much more pleasant for the passengers, should be much quicker. And then as they leave the checkpoint, then they have the full concourse to work with, and they won't have these pinch points they have to try to navigate around. That's just a few of the features within the program. There's many, many other changes within the concourse areas, both on the flooring, the wall coverings, the ceilings, all the finishes, the concepts of how this will look. And Mark is going to go through a lot of these internal features later, so I'm not going to go in, I'm not going to steal his thunder and talk any more about the concourse proper.